Our metal baseboard system consists of two horizontal runs of 1.5-inch square tube with twin-wall polycarbonate covering it and running down into the ground. The tubing is attached to the ground posts using pipe straps and Tek screws. The polycarbonate skirt is fixed to the steel using Tek screws with neoprene washers. Before starting, plan your measurements carefully. Check your polycarbonate inventory to ensure you have enough material. Dig a trench about 3 inches deep along the outside of the ground posts. This trench will house the bottom of the polycarbonate. If you're working on sloped ground, you'll need to dig deeper at the higher points to keep everything level. Begin at the highest corner of your greenhouse. You'll want to place the baseboard as low as possible to minimize polycarbonate use and increase the amount of ventilation you can get through your roll-up sides, while also keeping the bottom run of tubing at least 3 inches off the ground. Mark the positions for both the top and bottom of the upper square tube run on the end bow. At this first corner, install a pre-drilled baseboard vertical. Trim the bottom so that 2 to 4 inches extends into the ground. Secure it to the bow using 1-inch Tek screws inserted through the pre-drilled hole and pinning the back face of the tubing to the bow. Measure and mark 4 inches down from the top of the vertical piece you just installed. This mark will indicate where the top of the bottom run of square tube should sit. Measure the distance from the top of the ground post to the mark you just made. Use this measurement to mark the same distance down from the top of each ground post along the entire length of the greenhouse. Lining your tubing up with these marks will ensure your baseboards are as straight as possible. Take a 16-foot piece of square tube and attach 2 90-degree angles to the non-swaged end. With help, attach this piece to the pre-drilled vertical using the angle brackets and 1-inch Tek screws. Align the top face of the tube with the mark you made in step 4.
At each subsequent bow, secure the tube using pipe straps and 1-inch Tek screws. Align the top of the tube with the marks you made earlier. Don't fully secure the straps yet, only use 2 screws for now. Cut a piece of tubing to use as a spacer. It should equal the distance from the top of your first tube to the top of the pre-drilled vertical, about 4 inches if you followed the measurements above. This spacer ensures consistent spacing between your 2 horizontal runs.
Install the top run of square tube. Start by attaching the non-swaged end to the top of the pre-drilled vertical with a 90-degree angle. Then, use your spacer block to maintain consistent spacing as you attach it to each bow with pipe straps. Continue this process down the length of the greenhouse. Slide new pieces of tubing over the swaged ends of the installed pieces, securing them with pipe straps as you go. When you reach the end of the tunnel, trim the last 2 pieces to mirror your starting end. Install another pre-drilled vertical and attach the horizontals with angle brackets. Remember, this end piece may need to be longer if there's a slope. Check for level by sighting down the length of each tube run. Adjust as necessary, then fully secure each pipe strap with a 3rd Tek screw.
Repeat the entire process on the other side of the greenhouse. You may need different measurements if there's a grade difference from side to side.
Now it's time to install the polycarbonate covering. Start by cutting a piece of single H extrusion to fit on the pre-drilled vertical. It should run from 2 to 4 inches in the ground to 1 inch from the top of the vertical. Secure it with Tek screws.
To determine the height of your polycarbonate, measure from the top of your upper steel run to 1 inch from the bottom of your trench. Do this at both the end bow and 14 feet in from the end. Mark these measurements on your polycarbonate sheet and cut along the line.
Remove the protective film from both sides of the polycarbonate. Insert one end into the single H on the end bow and align the long edge with the top of the square tube baseboard. Secure it using 1.5-inch Tek screws with neoprene washers every 12 to 18 inches along the bottom run of steel. For joints between polycarbonate sheets, use double H extrusion. Cut it 1 inch shorter than the polycarbonate height and slip it onto the end of the first sheet. Continue installing polycarbonate and double H extrusion down the length of the greenhouse. To secure the top edge of the polycarbonate, use single wire lock base. Run it flush with the top edge of the upper tube, securing it with 1-inch Tek screws every 12 to 18 inches.
Finally, install 6-inch eye bolts in the bottom tube to support the roll-up side. Space these every 8 feet, starting 24 inches from the first ground post. Drill holes carefully to avoid damaging the polycarbonate and secure the eye bolts with washers and nuts on both sides.